So
Rises.
we're about 30 minutes north of Salisbury, about 20 miles to the east of Bath, and then Swindon is sort of to the northeast. So in that sort of triangle near Avebury.
I used to have a house in Wiley, in the Wiley Valley.
Yes, yes. So yeah, that's more Stonehenge area, isn't it? From if we travel down to Stonehenge and then head along the 303.
Yes,
Yeah,
the
you get the
303.
yes.
Yeah.
The famous 303.
Famous 303. It's this road that goes right down into the southwest of England, but can get blocked, and it's like a single, but goes past Stonehenge. Have you ever heard of that? Which is these famous, what would you call it, stones?
Stones, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they've now got approval to build a tunnel through there.
Incredible.
So actually, all of that landscape will all be returned to grass.
When I was young, you could just walk up to those stones.
Me too.
There was no restrictions at all. Now it's all closed off.
All fenced
Anyway,
off.
I'm going to share the screen with something.
Yes. Oh, you're a Liverpool fan as well. My God,
Absolutely.
Moon last night.
Oh,
She was beside herself.
are you going to Liverpool? So I'm from Liverpool, and yes, I know my family are Liverpool supporters, and I was just watching a video on Facebook and really felt very tearful, and Carolyn, she joined on Zoom, and then I come back in tears having watched a Liverpool video, not realizing she was on there. Wow, it's amazing, because it's such a strange time for them to have that, because there's no crowds to watch the matches, and they became champions because of the result of another match last night.
Yes.
But amazing, and so deserved, I think. Their manager, I think he's a remarkable exemplar. I think, if you're looking for exemplars in the world, Jurgen Klopp is their manager, is I think an incredibly admirable guy in his principles and his style of coaching. Yeah. So he's found his place. They found their coach when they found him.
He's all about the whole team, isn't he? Down to the physios, down to the stadium cleaners, everything. When he talks team, he's not talking about the players on the field. He's talking about the whole infrastructure, everybody who's involved in that club, which is wonderful.
And when you hear him being interviewed, he has got such a humble way of answering the questions, and such a wise way of answering the questions as well. And he's a very generous man. People have known him to stop and pay for somebody's food for a situation where, there's quite a lot of stories which he doesn't broadcast, but other people broadcast about him. Liverpool, I should have been wearing red, shouldn't I, really, to sort of celebrate them. So.
My husband, I was just going to say, my husband chose to break lockdown to spend it with his dad, because it was such a momentous.
Yes.
So he chose to go before the game to spend that time with him, and he is on cloud 9 today.
Mm-hmm. Well, Carolyn and I have a friend who's she is a real Liverpool, and she see her Facebook page today. It's just Liverpool. So absolutely everything's red, everything's Liverpool. But it's great, really great. They deserve it, I think. Absolutely. So how are you? I'm going to have to leave very promptly today, so I won't be there for an informal session afterwards. But Munter will close today because Carolyn has to leave promptly as well. If you have any particular questions at the end, Munter's going to deal with them all. Where are you, Munter? And it's a weekend, isn't it? Goodness me. So we have some thoughts about, if you have time, some specific things you could do over the weekend. I'm just curious, any reflections you had on yesterday, because I was taking you through, one of the I suppose kind of a biggie, really, the belief re-imprint. It's quite they all have a place, but that one's quite a significant thing, to go back and change a limiting belief in that way. And I think it embodies so many of the elements of NLP, because it's a bit like doing a perceptual positions exercise. Some of you have done that, but back in time. and it kind of explores the way we use time, but imagine any point in time as if it's the present, so that we have an associated representation, and metaphorically using a timeline and using movement to access, and using the feeling, in that case a not okay feeling, as the search vehicle. So it relies on you being not knowing. It's not like thinking, oh, I know when that started. You just let the feeling be the search mechanism as you walk back in time, so that things come to mind. It's like a Google search, in that you access the feeling and then you move. It's a bit like saying to Google, I want to find this, and it's the moving and the fact you've programmed that feeling in, or access that feeling at the beginning. That's what brings the situations to mind, which almost invariably won't be the same situations if you try and think them out intellectually. So often people don't realize, what the belief forming time was. Sometimes, they go back and then discover, hey, this is when I first felt this, whereas perhaps they thought it was sometime later in life, for example. It was, when was that? When did we did that yesterday, didn't we? When did I go to that birthday party? Because the couple I was talking about, they were bombarding me with questions. One, I think they were trying to analyze why I would want to continue to work, and she was doing now, is that because when you were young? And I was just thinking, honestly, it's such a different approach to allowing people to explore their own timeline, to kind of tell them that's because you had this kind of upbringing and your mother must have said that to you. I was quite a combination of amused and frustrated at the same time. So what reflections or what subsequent thoughts did you have about that after yesterday?
Hey Sue, this is Lakshmi. Can I say?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I did the timeline in the morning, this morning, and after yesterday again I did. And it came to my awareness that this is something, a not okay feeling, which I was holding since I was in 3rd grade. So I realized only when I went back in time and I was trying to understand from where it started. And I, even the moment in which I felt, I got into that not okay state, I could realize and I could see that moment. And from there, I did work on, and a lot of resources which I have given to myself. And when I actually completed the exercise, I also realized that I was looking for an external reference or an external emphasis to ensure that everything was good. And I told myself, or I came out with the learning that, there's no one needed for this. I can hold space for myself, and I will trust myself on everything. I don't need an external reference or an external affirmation from outside. So it was profound when I actually experienced it this morning.
That is
Thank
profound.
you so much.
Gosh, that is profound. And you did that for yourself?
With your guidance, with the recorded.
You did it with the recording, yeah.
Yeah.
Gosh, fantastic, Lakshmi. That's a big shift to go, to be able to shift an external reference to an internal reference. It's probably in some ways one of the more challenging shifts in filters to make. Fantastic you achieved that with that.
Thanks, Sue. Thank you.
The principle is that if you've been looking for validation from outside, it's a form of projection onto other people, that we project our stuff onto others. So all that we've learned is to bring that projection back inside and go, well, if I rely on others, then I can rely on myself.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Wow. Congratulations on that.
Thank you so much.
I have a question, Sue.
Yes.
So does the event have to be something, not okay state, has to be something like really big? Because yesterday when I tried it, I was dissociated. I couldn't be there, like I was lost somewhere, because the event was something which is not a major event. So I was wondering, does it have to be a big thing?
When you say event, what do you mean by event?
So we had to go to a not so good state. That's the, yeah,
feeling.
State.
So a feeling.
Yes. I was looking at anger.
Okay.
But yeah. And that anger was when I shout at my kids because they mess, when they eat, like the food would be on the floor, and I don't like myself. So it's not something.
That's justified.
Yeah. But I don't like myself, and I'm working on that. But when you told me to go, when you told us to go to a younger, what would your younger self be? And that was.
Well, hang on. Is it a feeling, though? Is it a feeling that you recognize that has been a recurrent feeling for you over your life?
Yeah.
In life, before the children?
No.
No.
Like even when the kids were younger, I wasn't shouting at them because they were little kids.
No, it doesn't. It's more likely to be something that you felt independently, almost in any circumstance. It's a recurrent feeling that you've had in your life, typically. I mean, shouting at kids because they're making a mess, totally justified. But so it's more likely to be a feeling that you think it's like a loop, a game that you get into with yourself, and you recognize that it's recurrent. I mean, it sounds slightly different what you're describing, I would say.
Okay.
But, you can still work with it, try it and find out. So you access the feeling and go back and say, have you, for example, had this feeling of anger in different circumstances? And do those come to mind, come into your experience as you go back on the timeline? And if not, I'd try it with something else.
Yeah.
But it's that thinking, if you ever have that thinking, you think, oh, where did I have it this morning? I thought, I know this feeling. What was it with? I know with the sourdough, because I was getting very frustrated with the sourdough this morning. And I thought, oh, there was something else though. And I was really tempted to blame somebody else and to get pissed off about something. And I thought, I've done this many times in my life. And I caught myself, fortunately, and had a cup of tea and calmed down. But it's that kind of thing when you think, oh, I know I do this. This is a game that I play. An unhealthy game that I play with myself. That's what it lends itself to. Recurrent not okay feelings that you kind of have hung on to for who knows for what reason.
Yeah. So it has to be something recurrent for ages, not something that is 5-6 years old.
It could be. It could be. I mean, just try it. The answer's always in trying it out and finding out how that works. There's no really have to be's about any of this, but it lends itself to emotional states. That's typically the thing that recurs for people, a not okay feeling of some kind.
And regarding grief?
Yes, you asked, would it work with grief?
Yeah.
Well, I suppose if you've been grieving whatever the circumstance throughout your life, then yes. But I think otherwise grief is a very appropriate feeling to have. Depends how you consider it, I guess.
Because yesterday, right after this session, I had a coaching session and the client was coming up with grief topic. And I was like, shall I go through that line?
Well,
or shall I not?
I think grief's a very appropriate thing to feel. You know, if, let's say, somebody...
She's been holding it for so long now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I didn't try it, but that's why I sent you that.
I mean, the thing with all of these is to try and, you know, you only find out, you only find out what works, what makes a difference. And you don't have to do things in that happens to be the model in the way it was learned at that time and the way it's been presented. Use them in whatever way works. So try it.
Yeah, that's the only way. Trial and error.
Yeah, try it. And then you'll find out. You'll find out what resonates, what doesn't. And then you try something else.
Good, thank you.
Welcome, Claire. Oh, and Laura, yeah.
Hi, Sue. Yesterday was phenomenal. The reason I started NLP was to help our son with separation anxiety. And I took myself to that not nice feeling. And when I had it was when I actually said goodbye to my parents at boarding school at the age of 11.
Right.
And to make those connections and to give myself the resources I needed right then. I was an emotional wreck. Thankfully, I stood away from the screen. But I felt, like Helen said, felt very comfortable just to let it go. And I've never put that connection with our son's separation anxiety to that. I put it to the loss of my mother like 20 years ago.
Yeah.
But I just felt it phenomenal. So I have two quick questions, if I may.
I'll just comment on that. I think and I've already said that this afternoon, that's a key thing about that, is that in the moving back, when you think, you know, you move far enough back in time, you think, so like people look blank, think, oh, I don't have it. It's not here. I don't have this feeling. I don't even have an experience of this feeling. And then to step very incrementally forward, you know, this is the first time I felt it. So to find that first time in that way, sometimes often reveals a different time, as you discovered, to what you've intellectually thought was the time.
Yeah.
And that's...
Yeah. And so would I ever explore that again on myself to almost test out that was the time? Or
what do you think my answer's going to be?
Have a go.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Just try.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole thing about this kind of is about learning to rediscover things for yourself. And the way you discover things is to try them out. And what works, you know, is quite unique to each person.
Yeah. And with children, I do a timeline in my practice, but it's not that model.
Right.
And I love that model massively. Your model, or the model that you presented yesterday, what age would you say you would do that with?
I don't know. Try it.
Yeah.
It's fascinating when you just explore the boundaries of perhaps what you've thought is the range and try something. Yeah, who knows?
Okay. I guess my concern is if it got very emotional for the child.
Well, you give people, and I probably didn't emphasize it yesterday, how you do this maybe with a child would be different, but giving people the permission to step away. You know, don't have to go into things in a huge way, just to get enough to be able to access states. And, you know, Frank Farrelly, who did the provocative coaching, you know, he took the view that everybody was far more resourceful than sometimes we allowed them to be, that we considered them to be. I mean, he was working with, you know, severe sort of cases in hospital, people that psychiatrists and so on had said we can't help them. They almost, you know, kept away from them. And he worked with them and they said, you know, you can't risk that. And he said, if you trust that people are resourceful, I know he was talking about adults primarily, but he said, you trust people are resourceful, and they are. He said it's like they respond to that. He said, and most of the patients, that he had the psychiatrist around their little fingers because they knew that, they could sort of play up in a certain way and kind of get what they wanted because of that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Laura.
Going back to, it's all linked, but going back to what Faten asked, if I can share with you that it was that exercise that unlocked for me grief and actually everything else that was also wrapped up in it. And it was the fact that I could step off the line that made it possible for me to face it. So I had ignored it or tried to bury it for that length of time. And it was, as Kevin's just said, extremely heavy and traumatic for lots of reasons. And the timeline allowed me to face it.
Yes.
In a way that I could never have imagined even going into that day.
Yeah.
Ever. I, completely avoided it. But it was the get out of being able to step off it.
Yes.
And I chose to be in it.
Yeah.
And that's the difference with me. It was the actual choice and the space to be able to do that.
Yes.
So,
and I think with these things initially, although, for example, Lakshmi has effectively done it for herself this morning, but to have somebody coaching you, it's great to have somebody who's managing the process, so that you can and they kind of hold this safe space for you as you learn how to do that for yourself. So that can be important as well. Okay. Yeah. What's Kevin up to? He's always up to something in the background. I bet you passed notes in class when you were at school, Kevin.
Well, I would have done it if I could write. I have it's a privilege to be able to observe as an observer. And one of the things that struck me yesterday was it's worth trying to do the exercises physically, spatially.
Yeah.
Whether it's this model or perceptual positions. And I was resistant to that because I'm very cerebral. And then a friend pointed out that the word remember is literally, the etymology of that is remember, to take back into the members.
Yes.
So we hold memory in very different ways. And so it's worth experimenting.
The movement, it's a whole body learning.
Yeah.
So our body knows things that, kind of consciously, intellectually, we would access quite differently or might not consciously know. It's like sometimes when people, are walking backwards or forwards on a timeline, they can seemingly trip or hesitate, without meaning to. And if as a coach you say, well, what's happening here? It's often something significant happening there. It's interesting what we physically do in the space, that in itself, for example, in the perceptual positions, in asking people to step back into a third position, to consider them in their own shoes and the other person. And often you'll find that somebody will stand closer to one position than the other, so it's not an equidistant third position, and it reveals their attachment. For example, if they stand closer to the space that they had allocated for themselves in their own shoes, you can realize actually they're very attached to that, much more attached to their own position than they are to the other person's position, and they don't realize that they're revealing those things. So a lot is revealed physically through the non-verbal behavior. So yes, and you're just allowing every part of you to contribute to the learning and the change. Yeah, interesting about the word remember. We're basically, all of these things are bringing things back into self. It's like, owning what we experienced, owning these things in the past, owning our experiences of other people, owning what's happening in the world. We're bringing it back to ourselves. Okay, so can you make me host, please? I'm gonna.
suspect you're going to ask about splitting into groups at some point.
Yeah. So what I took you through, you could write it down, but it might I'm just wondering whether to take a few moments with a partner to do that, because and it is written down. It's I'm not sure if that one's written down in my book, or not, that particular model. So
not that particular model.
No, not that particular one. So to be able to write that down as a set of instructions, that's an example of a model. That's what you're after in what you're studying. And so a model consists of beliefs that you would hold, to hold. So if you're instructing somebody else, you're actually instructing them, what beliefs to hold, how to move, what to think, what to do. So it's a set of instructions, possibly at many levels of the logical levels, behaviors, filters, so that you give them all the steps that they need to be able to take themselves through that process. So that's what that was. So me taking you through that is just one way of imparting a model. And when you discover a model, then it's useful to, and if you look at probably all the other chapters in my book, things like the perceptual positions, there's a shortcut to them in each chapter. And it says, do this, do this, do this, do this. They are the models that have been discovered by modeling people who are skilled at those particular things. And so a model, and there may be moments where there may be part of the model which is expressed in submodalities as well. So in that model for the belief reimprint, it involves moving, imagining a line, establishing where the line is, being able to step away from a line. So there's a lot of use of metaphor, because the timeline is a metaphor, and then what to do with that line in such a way that the person gets that shift. So the measure of success of that tells you that you've achieved it, that the model's worked, is that people get a changed state at the end of it. So they have this kind of, usually a feeling of lightness, of having, let go of something, and situations that they've experienced and they anticipate experiencing, now don't have the kind of threat or concern that they might have had about them before. So they come back in a different state, in a resourceful state, a kind of relieved state in many ways. And so if you're teaching it to somebody else, that's what you're expecting to be the result. And if it's not, then that's feedback, because something's missing. Vikram.
Yes.
Did you have a question?
No.
Oh, okay. You can have a question while you're on, if you like.
Not now, as
I'll wait.
I do.
Okay. So I think take a moment with a partner, just to clarify some of the steps of that. What were some of the steps that you recognized in that process? Agree. I mean, if you can get to the whole structure of it, I mean, that's great. Just so then you'll have written out the model. You'll have written out the structure of that model for a belief reimprint. Oh, if it's a given one, it's one that's been discovered before. But nevertheless, it's like, can you write it down? This is the model. This is what if I was to impart that to somebody else, this is what I'd be following. Have a go with a partner for 10 minutes.
Okay. Mumta, if you stay out, and if Kevin, you go in, that'd be good. Want to stop recording, Sue?
Yeah. Okay. Hello.
Hello.
Okay. So I don't know if you've read the chapter in my book which actually even shows you how to code very specific bits of a model. So you can code things like visual external, auditory digital, internal, auditory external, so on. So there'll be parts of a model. And when you are doing your modeling and the writing up of your model, the most important thing is for you to demonstrate that you can use all the different tools for modeling. So to have examples of all of those things. It's more important than anything is that you're showing that you know how to model, basically. That's the most important thing. Okay. Any questions from that? Okay.
Are these the letters that you, like I've seen some of the examples on your website with letters. Are these the codes?
Yes.
And which chapter is that?
Chapter 10.
10.
Many things she knows. I don't know.
I know.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you.
Just when we'll put something up on the group to support that, so you can see the examples. So it's like, for example, if it's there's an example I use in the book about cycling, you know, so cycling uphill. So it's like visual external is to see the hill, auditory, so that would be VE, auditory internal, so AID, internal dialogue. It's like say something to yourself. Like I first of all coded a not okay strategy. So I used to say to myself, oh shit, this is going to be difficult. You know, that's what I used to do. That was a not okay strategy. And then it would be kinesthetic. So K is kinesthetic, which could be a feeling internally, KI, or KE is an actual physical feeling. So it's like the combination of those senses, those modes of thinking that you can code in parts of a model. So I'll give you some examples of that in a supporting material. Okay, so we're going to just do something else so that you have a very specific opportunity to do some modeling. And I thought, Carolyn, you could brief the group on this because you just explained it.
Mute. Right, I'm unmute. Right, okay, I've lost that now. Okay, so I was in the middle of something there. So there'll be 3 people not invited to the rooms, and I'll put you in when they open.
Yeah.
Just so that works. Okay, so what we thought was that over the weekend you could model something that would support you for your progress and for your and take you forward. Something really simple, and you could model one person or more, but at least one. And when I said something very simple, it could be something that you might resist doing personally, or it could be something that you enjoy doing. And there's something simple that I can't remember if it was you said it or Sue or I did. It's as simple as sweeping the floor. And if we presuppose that the person that you are looking at as an exemplar, presuppose that the way they do something is the way they do everything. And the way that they sweep the floor will be the way they do the thing that you would like to model. So say, for example, I wanted to model, and the example I used was tenacity and getting things done in a very ordered and structured way, which is quite a big chunk. I could presuppose that someone that has that and does that in the way that I want to be able to model and replicate and then code and so on and structure, the way that they sweep the floor will be that. And in that, when I'm modeling them and asking the questions, the beliefs they hold, the environment they're in, what they're seeing, doing, and so on, will give me the structure of what I'm looking for.
Yeah. And you had some things to add to that. It kind of came from us thinking about tendencies to think very grand sometimes in modeling projects. And actually the learning can come from very specific things. And I remember reading about Karen Armstrong, who's the author of a book called Through the Narrow Gate. and she lived in a very tough convent for a long time. And she became a remarkable sort of writer on faith and spirituality. And she said some of the most powerful moments was when she had to clean things. And it's interesting, Leslie, who was with us yesterday and the day before, and she's taking care of these people in the house. And she said when she joined this organization, this care home, she had to clean the toilets. And she said she hadn't really, and yet there's been a kind of learning in that and a discipline in that that's really spread into other areas of the way that she is. You had something to add, Mumta, about your own experience?
Yeah, this is while I was 17, 18, maybe just after high secondary school, and I was asked to sweep, mop the floor, wash the toilets, do any task, wash big vessels. So I come from a family where I didn't have to do any of the household tasks from my birth at all. My mother always had maids. So they would say, we are not going to talk about dropping egos. We will see live in action that you drop your egos. Do you think you're rich? You this? So that was our spiritual training, to drop our egos by doing tasks which we think only lower people will do. That's how it is in India, at least. Yeah.
And you came up with a phrase like, you might choose to model something that you resist doing, whether that's sweeping the floor or what. What's something you resist doing, but there's of that level of detail that you could model in somebody this weekend? Okay. Now,
I was always comfortable washing clothes at home, as in if once in a while, if I need to wash, I'll wash clothes, but not vessels. But I always got washing vessels there. Somehow they found that I resisted or whatever. So I was always given the task until I was used to it. I didn't have an ego about it.
Yes, that's a good frame as well, to choose those things that perhaps you've had an ego about, and it's like to truly do them well would be to do them in an ego-less way, rather than how do I be grand and successful, and saying how do I have that humility. Now we're going to split into groups. In these groups, you could suggest something for yourself and say, I'm going to model this. Or the group could say, I think it would be really interesting or valuable for you. You could offer it as a feedback to somebody in the group as well. Can I share, Carolyn? You asked me, because do you want to say that?
What was it you wanted me to share about this morning?
Well, you came back and said, okay, so what would I tell you?
Yeah, I can't remember how it came about. However, what I heard was that Sue, if Sue could choose something for someone else to model, it would be X. So my question to her was, so what would the thing that it might be blind to me, what would you have me model so that I would grow and develop and so on?
Yeah. And it was?
And it was provocative.
Well, it was, yes, specifically how to respond to somebody. It's like play the devil's advocate.
Yeah.
But what was great was that we were talking about this generally, and Carolyn asked me, so said, okay, so what would you tell me? What would you suggest to me? So she asked for that in that feedback in that form. And so I thought, yeah, what would it be? What would expand my perception, Carolyn's repertoire? And I thought, yeah, to be provocative. So to respond to somebody in a kind of devil's advocate kind of a way.
In a way.
In a way. In your own way. In a Scottish way.
And that's more difficult. I'm a habitual rescuer and and give people the model and answer all the questions.
And help them out.
Help them out, yes.
And this would be leaving them to flounder, kind of, but to learn.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so how long for?
I have to leave one. So let's say 53. Let's say till 3:15. So 20 minutes.
20 minutes.
I know there'll be a lot of people in some groups, but nevertheless, we can make a start.
And I'm going to make you host, Sue. So if you don't join yet, and then join once I make you host, once I put the people out.
Yeah, and then you're leaving.
And then I'm leaving. Okay, so I'll see you all Monday.
Well, and they'll all be able to, they'll all have swept the floor.
Well, I'll sweep the floor with this. Okay, so.
See you, Carolyn.
See you. Have a lovely weekend.
So I will, I'll do this, then we'll come, oh, Mumta's gone.
Oh, right. Right. Host, don't go, Sue, because I need to make you host. Yes.
Right.
Host. Right, you're recording as well.
Yeah, so I need to.
A question, Sue, about the drains. If I'm modelling him, does that mean he has to do it?
And then you have to do it to prove that you can do it.
I'm just going to write the notes on how he did it, right?
I think, no, I think you've got to, you should just start it off and then you do it.
Okay.
And saying like some people are going for cooking things, and it's not just about giving a recipe, it's the strategy of how somebody makes what they make, does what they do. That's so you will be coming back with strategies. Now, you know, for your modeling project, I'd expect you to model at least 3 people. For this, it can be just the one person. So it's just the opportunity to get a strategy from that one person. What are you modeling, Sarah?
I think, I might on this, but I think what I'm modelling is somebody who is able to manage people that don't listen or are disruptive or something like that, I think.
Sounds pretty certain.
But yeah, I don't know if any of my group can just advise me on that, that would be great.
Right, so any suggestions, just give them or put them in the chat for Sarah.
Yeah, just a little bit of clarification would be good.
And chunk down, so make it very specific. So you could say, is there something that Craig does, that your partner, that you could model that you resist?
Oh, there you go.
Oh, there we go. That looks like it's a good area.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Probably, yeah, there could be something there actually. Yeah.
I'm sure there could be, yes. Almost certainly. Fantastic. Okay, well, I'm going to leave you in Mumta's hands now. And I will see you on, what day? It's Friday, it's on Monday. So have a fantastic weekend and enjoy the modelling. It's such a great fun thing to do. And I really look forward to those of you who are modelling people close to you, which I guess it has to be for most people if you're all in kind of lockdown of some form. I look forward to hearing the results of that. And you're still with us on Monday, Manisha?
Yes, I am.
When you start traveling Monday night?
Monday night, yeah.
Right, okay. So we'll see you Monday.
Yes.
And then we see you in another place on
in another place, in another continent, another time zone on Wednesday.
Yes.
I miss Tuesday, yeah.
Wow, you missed Tuesday, okay.
Yeah.
Okay then, so it's bye from me and see you on Monday.
Bye.
So I'll keep the hosting, Mumta.
Yeah. Bye, Sue.
Bye-bye.
We're still recording, Mumta.